Right now, I'm 15 years old, and recently I got recruited for a tryout by one of the most prestigious basketball clubs in Beijing. And what's crazy is that a few years ago, I wasn't even close to that level, like nowhere close. I always had a dream of playing in the NBA, but I was never training like somebody who actually wanted that dream. I made excuses, I relied way too much on natural athleticism, I didn't understand discipline, and honestly, my mentality was probably holding me back way more than my basketball ability. So what changed? There were three key things: physical, mental, and spiritual. And by the end of this video, I'm going to give you the exact training system that I've been using to develop my game over the years, being my intense ball handling workout, my shooting workout, my finishing workout, and plyometrics, along with conditioning I use alongside with. So, I actually started playing basketball when I was in 6th grade, and I played throughout 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But there was a difference between playing basketball and actually taking basketball seriously. For a long time, I was just playing. I enjoyed it. I liked competing. I liked getting better. And I was probably better than most people my age around me. So because of that, I think I developed a little bit of a problem. I thought being naturally athletic and being better than the people around me meant I was already pretty good, you know? But that was a problem. That was something I really had to understand, because you can be one of the best players in your school and still have a ridiculous amount to improve. And that's basically where I was. I wasn't bad, but I wasn't at the level where a serious club was going to look at me and immediately say, we need this player. And honestly, I think that was a good thing, because it gave me somewhere to go. I had a lot of room to improve. And during 9th grade, something really started changing. I started thinking more seriously about basketball. I started thinking about the NBA. I started thinking about how good I can actually become. And I realized that if I genuinely wanted to chase this dream, I couldn't just hope that I would naturally get better. I had to actually become better. And that's where things started. And I thought basketball was just mostly about playing basketball. So I'd shoot, I'd dribble, I'd play pickup. Now don't get me wrong, those do work. Like shooting around and dribbling trains that consistency because it helps you with muscle memory. But if you really want to get to a real high level, that's not enough. Like, you actually have to train, you know? So I do those. I'll just shoot around and just dribble a little bit, and I'd expect myself to improve. But eventually I realized that it wasn't enough. If I wanted to become the player I had in my head, I had to actually train like that player. I had to work on the things that weren't fun. I had to work on the things that I wasn't naturally good at. And that's when I started understanding that a complete basketball player isn't just shooting and dribbling. You need strength, explosiveness, conditioning, coordination, vertical, all those kind of things. So I started incorporating things like plyometrics, strength training, conditioning, and more structured basketball workouts into my training. And doing that was one of the biggest changes for me, because instead of just asking, what basketball drill should I do today? I started asking, what does my game actually need? If my handle was weak, I worked on my handle. If my finishing was weak, I worked on my finishing. If I wasn't explosive enough, I worked on explosiveness. If I was getting tired, I worked on conditioning. And I think that's advice that applies to basically every athlete. Don't just train the things you're already good at because they're fun. Train the things you're bad at, because your weaknesses are literally telling you what you need to work on. And another thing I learned is that you can't expect one workout to completely change you. You're probably not going to do a plyometric workout on Monday and suddenly jump 5 inches higher on Tuesday. You're not going to practice your left hand for 3 days and suddenly have an elite handle like Kyrie Irving. The changes happen when you keep doing the work over and over again. And that leads to the second thing I had to change, because honestly, the physical part wasn't even the hardest. It was the mental. I had to change the way I thought. And this was probably one of the biggest things holding me back. I used to make excuses for all my mistakes. If I missed a shot, there was always a reason. If I turned the ball over, maybe it was someone else's fault. If I played badly, maybe I was tired. Maybe the pass was bad. Maybe somebody fouled me. I'm telling you, there was always a reason. And the problem with that is, if you never blame yourself for your mistakes, you never actually have to fix them. Eventually, I realized I needed to be brutally honest with myself. I had to stop thinking I was already good enough. I had to stop thinking I was too good for the basic stuff. I had to stop thinking that because I could already do something, I didn't need to practice it. So I basically had to tell myself I'm not as good as I think I am. Now, I don't mean that in a way where you should constantly hate yourself or put yourself down. That's not the point. The point is that I needed to remove my ego. I needed to be able to look at my game and say, yeah, I'm bad at this. Yeah, my left hand needs work. Yeah, my shooting needs work. Yeah, my defense needs work. Yeah, I don't understand this concept yet. Because once you admit that something is a weakness, you can actually attack it. And I think that's something a lot of young athletes struggle with. Your ego can make you too good for the basics. You might see a coach making you do some simple drills and think, I already know how to do this. But what if you don't? Or maybe you know how to do it but you can't do it perfectly. There's a difference, and that's something I eventually learned. I stopped caring about whether a drill looked impressive. I cared about whether it was helping me improve, and that completely changed how I trained. I started listening more. I started accepting criticism more. I started looking at mistakes differently. Instead of thinking, how do I explain why I messed up? I started thinking, why did I mess up? And how do I stop it from happening again? And that's a huge difference, because you can't improve what you're unwilling to admit. The third thing was probably the most personal, and that's my relationship with God. Looking back now, I honestly wish I had taken God more seriously early in my basketball journey. Because as I started taking my relationship with Him more seriously, my perspective started changing. Basketball was still extremely important to me. My dream was still the NBA. I still wanted to become the best player I could become, but basketball stopped being the only thing I cared about. And for me personally, my faith helped me develop more patience, more discipline, and more perspective. I started praying more, I started trusting God more, and I started understanding that I can work extremely hard towards something without being able to control exactly when it happens or what happens when you do reach it. Because I could be training as hard as I want and I get an opportunity, but what if I get injured as soon as that happens and my Achilles is torn or something? Like, that would have been that all of the work I put in, all the hard work I put in would have been equal to zero, because I won't be able to play anymore. So I learned to trust Him. And I think that's important when you're chasing a dream, because you can't control the result. I can't control whether a coach likes me. I can't control whether I get recruited. I can't control what other players do. I can't control whether somebody thinks I'm good enough. What I can control is whether I show up, whether I work, whether I listen, whether I improve, whether I stay disciplined. And for me, that's where faith became such a big part of the journey. I'm not saying that having faith means everything will automatically work out exactly how you want. That's not how I see it. For me, it meant trusting God while still doing my part. I still had to train. I still had to improve. I still had to compete. I still had to take opportunities. But I didn't have to carry the entire future on my shoulders. And that mindset helped me a lot. The crazy thing is, even after I started changing these things, I didn't suddenly become amazing. There was still a period where I wasn't seeing the progress I wanted. And honestly, that can be really discouraging. You can train for weeks. You can train for months, and sometimes you look at yourself and think, why am I not that much better? But one thing I learned is that progress isn't always visible while it's happening. Sometimes you're improving without realizing it. Your movements are getting cleaner, you're getting stronger, your conditioning is improving, your confidence is improving, you're learning how to train properly. And then eventually you look back and realize, wait, I'm actually way different from where I started. That's why consistency matters so much. If you're only going to work when you're seeing immediate results, you're probably going to quit. Because improvement definitely isn't linear. Some weeks you'll feel amazing, some weeks you'll feel terrible, some days you'll hit everything, some days you'll feel like you can't make a shot. You have to keep going anyway, and that's where patience comes in. You can't rush development. You can't rush that. That's something that takes time and consistency. Another thing I really didn't understand at first was discipline. I would train a little, then I'd stop. Then I get motivated again, then I stop. And eventually I realized that motivation isn't enough, because motivation is temporary. You can't build your future around whether you feel motivated that day. And I had to understand something that sounds obvious but really hit me. This is my future I'm playing with. Nobody else is going to become a better basketball player for me. Nobody else is going to do my workouts. Nobody else is going to make my decisions. Every day I have choices. I can spend my time doing things that move me toward my goals, or I can spend time doing things that don't. And I'm not saying that you can't have fun. You can. You're allowed to have a life. You're allowed to hang out with your friends. You're allowed to relax. But you have to understand your priorities. If basketball is genuinely your dream, eventually your actions have to match that dream. Because saying I want to play in the NBA doesn't mean much if you don't do the work that you're required to do to get to that point, to get to that level. And that's something that I had to learn for myself. And then we get to the part of the story where everything actually happened. And unfortunately, I don't have footage of this. Because obviously, I wasn't recording myself after a pickup game thinking, let me record this in case I get recruited later. But this is probably one of the most important moments of the entire story. I was in 9th grade, I was playing basketball on a random court. It was just pickup. There was a coach there and we were doing some drills. And honestly, the drills were pretty basic. Stretching, simple movements, basic drills. Things that the old me would have hated to do. The old me would have been thinking, why are we doing this? I'm way too good for this. I do not need this. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had already learned that mindset was one of the things holding me back. So I just did the drills. I just listened. I tried doing everything as well as I could. And while some of the other players were complaining about the drills, I was just doing them. And then something happened that I honestly did not expect. A coach from one of the most prestigious basketball clubs in Beijing walked over to me. And that's one of the moments where you really start thinking about everything that happened before it. Because what if I had acted like the old me? What if I had complained? What if I had decided I was too good for the drill? What if I had refused to listen? Maybe that opportunity would have never happened. And that's something I think about a lot. Sometimes you don't realize that the small things you're doing right now are preparing you for an opportunity you don't even know is coming. So if you're watching this because you're also trying to get recruited, here's what I would tell you based on my experience. First, don't worry about being the best player right now. Focus on becoming better. You don't have to be amazing before you start. I definitely wasn't. Second, be brutally honest about your weaknesses. Don't make excuses. Don't hide them. Find them and work on them. Third, don't let your ego make you too good for the basics. If a coach tells you to do something simple, do it. If a drill looks easy, do it properly. If someone gives you criticism, listen. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. Even the best players in the world still have coaches. Fourth, put yourself in environments where opportunities can find you. You can't just sit in your backyard forever hoping someone discovers you. You gotta play, you gotta compete, you gotta go to camps, you gotta go to tryouts, play against better players. I always see people doing this. They'll say they're too scared to 1v1 this person because they're too good. No, you should 1v1 them. Even if they're too good, it's actually better if they're better than you, because the more you 1v1 someone who's better than you, the better you'll get, because you have to adapt your skills to a better player. So don't be scared of going against people that are better than you, because that just makes it better for your skill work. And fifth, be patient. You might not see results immediately. That doesn't mean you're failing. Just make sure you're actually doing the right things consistently. And finally, if basketball really is your dream, understand that nobody else can do the work for you. And now, if you want to know the exact workouts that I use for ball handling, shooting, conditioning, all of those that I used during my time to get better, just head down to the description. I put every single one down there. So yeah, look at those. You can adapt them based on how you are, because everybody's body is different. But yeah, that's the exact plan that I used every day to get to this level. Looking back, getting recruited wasn't one lucky moment. It came from changing how I trained, how I thought, and how I approached my faith. I still have a long way to go, trust me, but now I finally have the opportunity to see how far I can take this, and I'm just getting started.